Welcome back to Proxy, everybody, and today we're going to be talking about Craftworld Eldar Corsair Voidscarred in 10th edition and how to use them. So Voidscarred are one of those units that are a little bit unique. They fulfill a niche role that is not quite obvious to the player, and on top of that, it's not really obvious how you should equip them so that they can best perform that role. So we're going to talk about that today, and without further ado, let us go ahead and jump right into the video. But first, a quick overview of what we're going to be looking at in today's video. We're going to be looking at their stats, weapons, and special rules, their strengths and weaknesses, their combos and synergies, and lastly, the role they play in an Eldar army and how to make the most out of them. As for their stats, they have movement 7, which is pretty standard for Eldar infantry. No surprises there. They have a 4+ save and no invulnerable, so are kind of squishy. As for their ranged weapons, they can take blasters or shredders just like the Void Reavers. The Wayseeker has the Executioner psychic power, and it is awesome. It's way better than it even was last edition. Anti-infantry 2+, with D3 damage, AP -2 and 3 attacks. It's awesome. I mean, hey, maybe not as good as it was last edition, but it's automatic, it's much more reliable than last edition, and it does solid damage, especially when you factor in the unit's ability. They can also take a fusion pistol, which is extremely short-ranged, but it is potent. The Neuro Disruptor is pretty decent as well, as it wounds on a 2+. The unit can also take a Ranger long rifle, because, hey, why not? They can also take the Shuriken Cannon or Wraith Cannon if you take 10 models, which you will be taking with this unit. The unit also comes with Shuriken pistols and power weapons, but may exchange them for Shuriken rifles if you choose to do so, but you probably won't for the most part. And I'll explain why a little bit later when we talk about unit composition. As far as its melee weapons, the unit comes with Power Swords base as well as close combat weapons. These Power Swords have 3 attacks though, unlike their Void Reaver cousins. The Wayseeker is armed with a Witch Staff, which is essentially a Witch Blade with damage D3. And that's basically it. Hits on a 2+, damage D3, 2 attacks. Pretty standard. The Shade Runner is armed with a pair of Hekatari Blades, which are absolutely brutal. Unlike last editions, you get twin-linked AP -2, hits on a 2+, and has 4 attacks. So you have a massive number of attacks with that Shade Runner. You're re-rolling all your wounds. You're at AP -2, and you're hitting on a 2+. It's a pretty good melee option. As far as their abilities go, they have the Scout 7 ability, allowing them to get into better positions early in the game, just like the Reavers. Although their role is different from the Reavers, so you do have to keep that in mind. And their ability is you can choose one enemy unit at the beginning of the game, and this unit gains precision and lethal hits against that unit with all of its attacks. And this is what makes the unit good, because it gives them a role that no other unit in the Eldar Index really has, which is a unit assassin. This unit is designed to pick an enemy unit in the opponent's army and absolutely murder it. They have a lot of attacks between their shooting and close combat, and you should be aiming to use both in a single turn with these guys. And that means you're going to be getting a lot of lethal hits and a lot of precision hits. As far as their Wargear abilities, the Channeler Stones is something the Soul Weaver comes with, and it negates 1 failed saving throw per turn. It's the first one though, so if your opponent baits this out with a weaker attack, it's not as useful, but hey, it's free now, so you don't have to pay extra points for it. The Falcho allows the unit to ignore cover, and the Mist Shield gives the Felarch, which is the sergeant of the unit, a 4+ invulnerable save. Not sure how useful that is in most cases, but he has it for free, so you might as well. As far as their Wargear options, there's absolutely tons of options. They can take their Shuriken rifles instead of their power weapons, which again, you probably won't want to do just because of the fact that you're going to be equipping all the other types of special weapons, so you won't really have room for it. You can take a Shredder or Blaster for every 5 models. You can take a Shuriken Cannon or Wraith Cannon for every 10 models in the unit, just like the Void Reavers. You can even take a Ranger long rifle on one of your models. One model can take a fusion pistol, and another model can take a Falcho as well. As far as their unit composition, there's many different unit configurations available, but really only one true choice. So you can take 1 Felarch, 4-9 Corsair Voidscarred, 0-1 Shade Runner, 0-1 Soul Weaver, 0-1 Wayseeker. Now keep in mind that you cannot go over 10 models in this unit, no matter what you do. And that's why you're probably not going to be equipping many models with a Shuriken rifle, because most of your models are going to be specialist models like the Wayseeker or Soulweaver, or they're going to be armed with special and heavy weapons. So the Warhammer app gives you a few different, configurations of what you could actually use. And again, the center option is the only one you should ever really consider, which is your Felarch, 5 to 9 Voidscarred, Shade Runner, Soulweaver, Wayseeker. And that's about it. And do keep in mind that if you run a minimum unit, you're basically getting none of the other options, but you're still paying half the points for the unit. So a minimum unit is 90 points. You're getting 5 models in it, and you're not getting any of the special stuff really. And for a 10-man unit, it's 180 points, but you can get all the special characters and special weapons. None of these options are good because they all kind of leave out most of the special stuff, the Shade Runner, the Wayseeker, or, the Soulweaver in some cases. So you don't want to go with these. And these are also pretty useless because you're not using the full unit. So I don't know why they couldn't make this section less complicated, but there's a lot of different unit compositions available. But there's only really one that's viable, which is the 10-man unit with all the special weapons and special models, like the Wayseeker and Shade Runner. They are also infantry and have the grenades keyword. The grenades keyword's pretty good on these guys because they're getting additional mortal wounds when they're close to enemy units. Typically, they are going to be close enough to charge enemy units anyway, so popping 1 CP for the grenade stratagem might not be a bad idea against a target you really want dead. As far as their strengths and weaknesses go, their main strength is that they have a powerful ability that allows you to easily assassinate characters and the units they're with, right? Getting precision and lethal hits against an enemy unit with all of your attacks, not just your shooting like the Shroud Runners give you, is really powerful. They have versatile weapon and unit options, so they can take a bunch of different weapons from blasters to shredders and wraith cannons, so they have some powerful ranged weapons. They also have Scout 7, so they can get better board positions early in the game, so they can get after their chosen target. And lastly, their weakness, and it's a big weakness, is that they're very expensive. You have to take them as a max unit to get all the special characters and stuff like that. And they are a lot of points when you do that. They're 180 points for all 10 of them. And as a minimum unit, you really can't take any options, and you're never going to be wanting to take a minimum unit of these guys. Just because basically they can't take any of the special weapons really, except for 1 blast or 1 shredder. They can't take the Wraith Cannon or Shuriken Cannon or Ranger Long Rifle or Fusion Pistol, the Wayseeker, the Shade Runner, etc. Right? They can't take all the good options in a unit of 5, so you pretty much are shoehorned into taking a bigger unit. As far as their combos and synergies, your Yvraine will get lethal hits and precision against this unit's chosen target, as well as any character that joins them, which is very powerful. Vipers can remove a unit's cover, making it easier to be shot at with range attacks, making it a little more susceptible to your blasters and your Wraith Cannon. The Visarch can give them fights first, which is not the best, but the Visarch himself is a powerful melee character and can be very powerful in this unit. They also have the ability to benefit from Doom and Guide, something they didn't benefit from last edition. Guide helps them reroll their hits, which increases their damage considerably, and of course Doom giving them +1 to wound is massive as well. They also confer Scout 7 to transports they embark in. So if you want to embark in a transport, give them a little bit of cushion, give them a little bit of protection, and also Scout 7, you can do that. And I do recommend that you pay the extra points for the Wave Serpent in this case. Because they are so squishy and so expensive, you do want to keep them alive. So what is the role of Corsair Voidscarred in an Eldar army, and how do you make the most out of them? So Corsair Voidscarred at their core are an assassination unit designed to pick a key target with a character in it and rip its heart out for your opponent to see. And that's basically it. But they do pay a premium for this. So the whole unit getting lethal hits and precision on their range attacks as well as their melee attacks makes them an absolute nightmare against enemy units with character support. Because these guys are actually cheaper than a lot of the Death Stars out there, they can punch a Death Star in the face and out-trade them every single time if you're able to get these guys into range. And there's basically 2 ways you can use these guys. I prefer the defensive method, but you can also use them offensively if your opponent lets you get away with it. So using Scout 7, you can use them very offensively to move them up the board and engage their chosen target quickly. or defensively to deter the marked target from entering their threat range. So putting them in a Wave Serpent is a pretty good option either way. I like to put them in a Wave Serpent, hold them back a little bit, wait until an enemy Death Star or something like that walks up the board, puts their models on a key objective or something like that, and then I like to just come in and wipe them out. I think that's the best way to use it because it doesn't needlessly expose these guys to risk. And if you lose this unit, you're losing a large chunk of your army. You know, it's not expendable. It's not like a minimum unit of aspect warriors that, you know, you can sometimes throw away depending on the situation. These guys are very expensive, and with character support, they're going to be even more expensive. So that is something you have to consider when using them. Okay, so what is the best way to run Corsair Voidscarred? Well, a max unit of 10 with all the unit and weapon upgrades is definitely the way to go, because you get the most bang for your buck, you get the most weapons and special rules available to you, so you can basically increase the unit's lethality, and that's exactly what you want to do. And there's a very specific way in which you want to use this unit. So this unit is a combined arms unit. It is a shooting unit and a melee unit all wrapped up into one, and you want to be able to use both in the same turn if possible. So killing the enemy character with their shooting, neutralizing their buffing potential and supporting potential, and then charging in to finish the enemy unit in melee is the best way to go to get the most out of them. And these guys have brutal shooting. You can give them 2 blasters, which is my preferred way to do it. 2 blasters with precision hits and a wraith cannon with precision is most of the time going to be able to pop a character in the enemy unit pretty easily as well. You also have the fusion pistol and stuff like that, as well as other ranged weapons, like the Ranger long rifle, which already has precision, but it's still a better weapon than the shuriken rifle. So once you shoot, once you eliminate that enemy character in that unit, you can charge in, you're still getting the precision attacks, you're still getting the lethal hits against that unit. Even though precision doesn't matter anymore, your lethal hits will, and your unit has a lot of base attacks. Even the Wayseeker and the Soul Weaver models that are not really meant for close combat have a good number of attacks in close combat, which are pretty effective. And by the way, the Wayseeker's Executioner is also something that benefits from precision and lethal hits. And that thing alone, if you're lucky enough, can kill a character because it has a good amount of AP, always wounds infantry on 2s, which you should be fighting against infantry, and it has good damage, D3 damage apiece, with 3 attacks. So it's a pretty powerful ranged option. So my preferred unit is a Wayseeker, a Soul Weaver, a Shade Runner, a Felarch, 2 blasters, 1 Wraith Cannon, 1 fusion pistol, and of course the Falcho to ignore cover. This gives you the most deadly unit to be able to deal with other enemy units with characters in them, which is ideally what these units should be going after. Of course, if they do survive after, they do have some good weapons and stuff like that, so they can do some additional damage. Now, the other thing is that you can also add Yvraine to this unit. And basically what that does is it turns the squad into an absolute Death Star shredder. Because she has anti-infantry 2+ on her ranged attack, as well as devastating wounds, she can just rip a unit apart with mortal wounds and also just completely, absolutely murder anything that comes into contact with her in combat, because she has great close combat abilities as well. So she is 100 points. That will increase this unit's cost considerably, but she does add quite a few benefits to this unit, like a Feel No Pain 5+, and of course her range and melee attacks are quite good as well. Alright, so in conclusion, Corsair Voidscarred are a unique assassination unit with some seriously powerful weapons and options. And again, they do some serious damage when used correctly. Functionally, however, they're a pretty odd unit with a very narrow niche, and they pay a hefty price point for their role. And this is something I think really brings the unit down, is that you do pay a lot of points for this unit. They are one of the most, if not the most expensive infantry unit in our codex. Well, index, not codex, but yeah, they're the most expensive infantry unit in our index. They're a really cool unit overall, though, and they have a really cool role. It's really fun to charge these guys into enemy Death Stars and just look at your opponent's face as you tell them you're about to get shredded. Characters and unit alike will take a heavy hit to these models, but they may not be taken in a lot of lists due to their very specific function. And to perform that function well, they really need to be used in a specific way, which is They need to all be able to shoot at the enemy unit, which might not always be possible, and then they need to charge that said unit after having a successful turn of shooting. And if they can't do this, they're going to fail to give you any real value in the game. But if you manage to succeed and use them correctly, they can absolutely turn the tide of the battle. And if your opponent is relying on a huge Death Star to take the center of the battlefield, you've basically just won the game, because your opponent is going to have a very hard time retaking that ground. Also, just like the Corsair Void Reavers, this is a really cool looking unit, and I actually think it's even cooler looking than the Void Reavers themselves, because you can take cool models like the Shade Runner. The Shade Runner just looks so freaking cool, right? I mean, that thing is like a Warp Spider on steroids. That's how Warp Spiders should look. And I'm glad that at least we can get a good idea of how Warp Spiders at least should look in their future kit. All right, everybody, that is going to be it for today's video. Thanks for watching. Thanks to all my Patreons and supporters who have supported the channel over the last months. I greatly appreciate it. If you do want to become a Patreon member, I do have free trials set up. You can join for free. That does come with an invite to our Discord community. Of course, if you cancel, you'll still have permanent access to our Discord community to discuss strategies, tactics, and of course, hobbying with other like-minded Eldar players. I do also have a channel store page, so if you are interested in grabbing some Eldar-inspired apparel to wrap at your local game store, go check it out. I have the link set up in the description. All right, everybody, that's going to be it for today. Peace out. See you guys next time, and have some great games this week. Have a good one, everybody. See you later.